to AFAR, absent for a reason. I'm so glad to have y'all back with us today as we explore some of the barriers that prevent fathers from being engaged in their children's lives. You know what, Leonard? How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Charles. I got a haircut, man.
Yeah?
Check me out.
You're looking good, man.
Maintaining.
You're looking good. And I got my hair pressed, had the wig cap on last night. My wife didn't cut my hair yet, but that's okay. Got the line on my forehead. I'm ready, right? But it's so good to see you, man.
Good to see you, Charles.
Thank you, brother. I was thinking, man, the other day, I was like, for a lot of those dads out there that may not be in the household, I often wonder what the kids thought about those dads who were not physically there, right? And I wonder some of the questions that they asked themselves about why they're not there. And for me, man, today, I want us to really focus on what are some of those barriers that are preventing fathers from being engaged in the household, which is a part of the story that many kids do not see if their dads, right, aren't physically there. I mean, what are you thinking based on your experience and what you have seen in your work?
No, that's a great question. I think, based on my experience, man, I'm seeing systematic barriers, man. Even going to a divorce, I just have to frame it first systematically because the first interaction with the court, as a father and as a black man, you got to emphasize that. For me, didn't quite connect the dot that, yes, the court do talk about the best interest of the child, but that engagement towards father is different. So I just felt like there was some injustice in terms of just ways of engagement. And then, that's personally speaking, because my thing is, did not wake up in the morning and say, I don't love my kids anymore, right? So fighting to remain engaged, dealing with the court, I think that's, for me, I started to see, okay, that's a systematic external barriers, right? I think internal for me was that fight between the anger, mad, the circumstances, mad at the mom. So it was a challenge for me to kind of manage those feelings. It makes you want to give up, Charles, man. You know what I mean? But I think that doing this work, then you started compiling the list of external barriers, man. You're talking about even public assistance. I'm like, I want food stamp too, Charles. I want food stamps, but you have systems of care that create financial incentive for the moms, right? And this is not to wage a war on moms, right? This is critically to say that, we want to make sure there's fairness. So, yeah, man, it was just, you taking me back, Charles. But
you know what? I'm glad I'm taking you back, Leonard.
God.
Because what I'm hearing, man, and I think a lot of dads can agree with you that there's a whole nother fight that's going on when a dad isn't physically there that people in the world know nothing about, right? And I'm hearing from you, man, there's some anger there. You're battling a system. When you're a black man, not only are you battling a system, you're battling racism and oppression, right? And at the same time, you missing your child and you loving your child. Now, granted, there's some dads out there who may not want anything to do with their children, but there's a small percentage. But I think the reality is majority of dads out there who physically aren't present want to be engaged. I mean, quick story, Lynn. I remember when I came up to Boston to start Father's Uplift, I met a group of dads in a sober home in Roxbury. And all those dads absent from their kids' house, absent from their kids' lives, absent from the household. And I tell you, man, when I was meeting with them weekly, we had dinner. The majority of the things they were talking about, they talked about their kids, right? They talked about how they love their kids. But on the outside, kids at home without them, right? The mother's friends, right? Or the kids' friends, or the kids, whoever knows the kids, don't see the dad because dad in the sober home right now talking to me and talking to whoever he's talking to. But what they don't know, the people who don't see dad, they don't know that dad's talking about them every freaking day, right? Majority of our conversation, I love my kids. I miss my kids. I want to be there for my kids. I don't know how to pick up the phone, Leonard. I haven't seen them in like 5 or 10 years. What do? I'm embarrassed by what I've done in my past, Leonard. I mean, those are the conversations that are taking place when people do not see. They don't see the fight that you dealt with, Leonard, when you were battling the courts, right? They don't see how you were treated as a black man.
Gosh.
How you feel about that, man? Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. And the key thing is fight. The question, how do you fight? How do you fight those external barriers? And I think it's good to be very precise that it's about fighting. How do you fight? And then when you fight, your fight is mistaken for aggression, right?
Come on.
No one's seen a passion. You out there talking to the judge, trying to advocate for parenting time and understand different type of custody arrangement, but your fight is mistaken, man. You feel alone. right? And then that connect to external and internal. So fighting, man, gosh, I'm like, yo, how do you fight?
You know, I've seen dads deal with these barriers. Throughout my career as a therapist here, I've seen dads, right? Small percentage of, but I've seen dads say, you know what, Charles, if I got to deal with hearing this judge talk to me as if I'm nobody, then I'd rather not be in my kid's life. Charles, if I have to deal with how this social worker is talking to me,
come on,
I'd rather stop fighting. Charles, if I have to deal with people talking about me and slandering my name and the child's mother making it seem as if I don't care about my children, I'd rather not deal with any of it because it's too much to deal with it. And I think that's the real issue, guys. I mean, if you're listening to this, the real issue is that these barriers, right, systemic barriers that we're talking about become so overwhelming that many of the fathers out there give up altogether simply because they don't want to deal with those systems. And I think what we do here, Learning Fathers Uplifting, and then what we encourage people to do across the country, if you're in the service capacity of providing services to fathers, is that you want to reduce those barriers. You want to reduce the anxiety and depression associated to those barriers and help them navigate those barriers, right? But let me tell you, that's a different type of fight that you do not know if you don't have kids or been separated from your kids.
Come on, Charles. And
come on,
the
Leonard.
key word is advocacy. How I'm supposed to advocate for myself, Leonard. And I think that's the goal. I think that's how I got into advocacy, man. The need to advocate. And it's three things. First thing is advocating for yourself, your self-advocacy. You know, second thing as an individual, right? And the third thing is just like advocate, you know, how you're going to fight the system. And I think that's why we do our Fathers Uplift. It's all about coming up with a game plan. Because when we out there, when we tell you what time is it, it's game time. That mean that strategize in how you gonna engage the court. And you got to dress up, man. So that's why we focus on strategy. We focus on the fact that court presentation do matter. If you got upcoming court date coming up in the months ahead, you got to come to us, man. And we partner in this together. And I think that the message across the country, across the world is that advocacy do matter because the internal comes in addressing all that emotion, all that pain. Like you want to bust the judge upside his head, right?
Absolutely.
But we coach you to say, listen, you got to tell the judge why you're a good father.
Yeah, and busting the judge upside the head may be justified, and we agree with you, right? The judge may say some foul shit to you. It may be justified, right? But there's another way for you to overcome that barrier. And I think it's two messages here, Leonard, that we're talking to, that we're telling people. One message is, hey, fathers will not wake up and say, hey, I don't want to be in my kid's life, right? Every man who has a kid dreams of being the best father they can be, right? The other message is, hey, you know, there are issues that prevent fathers from being positively engaged. And if they become overwhelming, the father's gonna stop engaging altogether. And we don't want that. So how can we play our part? Then the other message is that, you know, for the kids out there who, young adults, older adults, who are looking at their fathers and blaming their fathers for not being there, I would encourage you to do what I had to do. Understand the backstory. Separate yourself from his absence. And realize that parenting is a difficult thing, man. And if it's overwhelming, you got to make sure that you give the person the benefit of the doubt and understand their story before you cast judgment. Because I realize, man, parenting is hard. I can easily become an absent father. Right? None of us are excluded from giving up on a barrier or becoming overwhelmed by a barrier to the extent that we just give up on the road altogether, because parenting is hard, right? There's no manual on parenting. Yeah. And I think we all just need to do our better part of understanding that fight, Leonard, that you're talking about. And one fight that we're talking about today is divorce. Now, there's some other fights as it relates to what keeps dads disengaged. I mean, we list them, Leonard. Let's talk about them. Public assistance can be a barrier, right? Restraining orders. Navigating child welfare and the Department of Children and Family Social Workers, dealing with their attitudes sometimes and the egotistical drives. Come on, let's talk about child support, right?
Child support, that's a big one.
This notion that if you don't pay child support, you get arrested, right? You get your license revoked. I mean, this housing, being deployed, being locked up, immigration. I mean, these are all barriers that are deep rooted in systems that could play a toll, that can take a toll on the father's mental capacity to want to stay engaged.
And I think that's what, you know, the community has to understand, because we're in this together, you know, because to change the narrative of the whole concept of deadbeat dad, you got to understand the barriers. So you got to compile your list when you and your dad out there. Look at the external that impact you personally. Look at the internal. And because these are it's triggering, man. We're talking about child support. That's a big one. You know, a lot of child support order on default. doesn't even match your income. So it's like, how you gonna pay child support if you locked up?
So what I'm hearing, man, is that, we need to add more notions to this deadbeat dad concept.
Yeah.
Dads are not deadbeat. They're either dead broke, dead hurt, dead, dead sick, dead, I don't know, disabled. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can add to the dead instead of just deadbeat. But we always kind of gravitate towards a deadbeat first. Why is that, man? I mean, why is society quick to gravitate towards, well, if we don't see the dad, he don't love his kid, he's deadbeat. Why do we gravitate towards that?
And they fuel that narrative. I mean, let's be honest, to movie, to magazine, I mean, and people overlook the data, the research. So you got to combine everything at the table. It's multi-layers, Charles, right?
Yeah.
And then people bleed on the inside. You talking about bleeding?
Come on.
Yeah, you bleeding on the inside, man. You bleeding like you want to see blood. It's that war within. So it's a war, and obviously, and then we got to be honest. We don't want to. It's not so much about waging a war on mothers, or I think it's about fairness, right? That's all, fair.
Thank you. Let me tell you this, Leonard. I'm so happy you brought that up. I grew up in a household raised by a single mother who worked extremely hard to make sure that I could have a chance in this world. When we didn't have no money for me to go to college, she told me I was going to college, and we figured it out all together. I have so much respect for mothers, single mothers, and I love them. Grew up in a household headed by my mother and also my aunt. 2 women, right? My mother's sister. So I have much respect for women. And I also, I want to agree with you. We're not here to say that, hey, mothers don't matter. We're not here to say that, mothers are horrible. On the other hand, we are here to say is that, mothers can be hurt sometimes, and mothers can stand in the way, right? We also want to say mothers care, right? And we also know that there's mothers out there that value a father's presence, right? Sometimes the father's just dead wrong. I mean, fathers can be dead wrong too,
absolutely.
Right? But at the end of the day, I think we all need to be on the same platform with valuing the importance of fatherhood the same way that we value the importance of motherhood. When you look at both holidays, right? Mother's Day versus Father's Day. Mother's Day makes substantially more money than Father's Day, which means more mothers are being celebrated than their fathers, right? So we just got to really be honest with the situation that we're up against. And here we're saying, hey, let's show more compassion for fathers who you may not see based on your physical eye, right? We want you to treat them as if they're regular fathers, right? Because they deserve to be treated like regular fathers. Don't judge them, understand their story. And we want to give you that story, so perhaps that can make a difference in how you view the fathers in your lives who may not be the ones that you see physically. Absolutely. And you don't know their struggle. You get me fired up on this goddamn podcast.
Let's do it.
Because I think I said 2 cuss words already, Leonard. Keep me updated with how many cuss words I am saying.
Nah, man, because it's emotion. It's not easy, man. It's not easy, and I think it's all about story. Everybody got a story. Because see, my story is like my father's my role model, and my parents, being together for a long time. Then it's like, okay, what's my pain? My pain coming that advocacy thing, going through it all alone and trying to advocate for yourself. And to your point, that's the thing. We not saying, look, you got to understand, here our Father's Uplift, right? We want to make sure that we teach and coach our father that you got to understand women as mothers, and you got to understand their response to anger. It's very important to be together on this table, man. But that's a whole nother topic.
It is, man. It's definitely important to be
all on. Shoot.
To really be aware, but also to know that we're all on the same team here. We're all on the same team here. And, healthy father, healthy mother, healthy child. Our goal is for everybody to be healthy, right? Not just one person. But the goal is definitely support fathers with being healthy, right? Because we realize that, dads need help too. And a lot of dads out there are struggling. And there's dads out there doing good too. But us dads who are doing good, can't forget about the dads that are struggling, because dads really make a difference.
Come on.
But Leonard, back to that point that you mentioned earlier about the pain of being in a divorce and how divorces can keep fathers out of their children's lives, man. I don't really know what that pain is. Can you explain to the world the type of pain that many fathers experience when a divorce takes place? Like, you're in this relationship, and then all of a sudden, the person that you thought you loved, the relationship just ends up, I would say, man, just being destroyed for whatever reason. The pain that's there, not only for the mother, the child, and the father, I think people need to understand what their pain is. Can you give us some insight into what that pain looks like from a divorced father's perspective? Like, what are you feeling when you get divorced? How does that process unfold? Because a lot of people are uneducated about what that looks like.
that process for me, bleeding on the inside. So that means that you questioning, it messes up with your self-worth, right? You questioning, okay, is it me? And obviously, it takes two to tango, right? But you're in a situation where you're trying to build a life together, it doesn't work out. And I'm going to try to put, all the business out there to my kid's mom, and shout out to her, because I developed that maturity to understand that, she's a mom too. But that pain you feel and you suffer in silence, man.
That sadness.
It's all of them. Yep. So anger, depression, sadness. And I think the anger impacts your body, man. And even, you start to get triggered for no reason. And then the sadness is the fact that you letting the family down, you letting the kids down, and then you got to go to the emotion that who's to blame. I mean, that's always the questions, right? But that pain become worse when you trying to say, okay, you come to the term that, okay, it's over. But then now you have to now fight to remain in your kid's life. And more pain added to when you facing barriers. And I think that's a double pain. You talking about double pain? What is it, double jeopardy? Well, no, I'm talking about double pain. It needs to be like a whole TV show. I hope I made sense, but I'm just saying that pain is real, y'all. That pain is like, for me, the term that I've always used that works for me is like bleeding on the inside. Because you see somebody bleeding physically, but you don't know what's that bleeding on the inside. So I started to focus on one of my favorite quote that got me keep moving is, when there's no enemy within, the enemy outside cannot hurt you.
Leonard, that's a great quote. I love it. Ooh, Leonard.
Come on, man.
Oh, I just caught the Holy Spirit.
Come on, Charles.
Leonard, Leonard, that whole, like how you conceptualize the bleeding and the pain of dealing with the relationship being separated and destroyed, but also that other pain of having to fight to stay engaged in your kids' lives. You're dealing with two types of pain. It reminded me of that video on social media that's been passed along with the old man who was hit by the cops, and he had fell to the ground, hit his head. A lot of people they're just walking by him, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, imagine dads in that position after a divorce. They're bleeding on two different levels. They have to navigate through the court system. They have to navigate through DCF or the social workers with child welfare. And there seems to be no compassion. So it's kind of like you're walking around bleeding, and it's like nobody's hearing me. Mm-hmm. And what does that do for a dad who is in the mental state of feeling, well, you know what? I feel bad already. Mm-hmm. The love of my life and I are separated. I'm fighting to remain engaged. Like, what does that do for people's psyche, man? And then you got to be extremely resilient and extremely strong to try to find and navigate to deal with that. But I'm going to tell you, that's not easy to navigate by yourself.
I think that was, you're right, because that's the whole point. Because what helped me, and it's good to know that out there, you got to find support. You got to work on your protective factors, the thing that contribute to protect your mental health. I had support, family foundation, my sense of purpose. Because that problem, when I say when there's no enemy within, I'm like, listen, I'm not perfect, but come on, man. I'm somebody, man.
You are, yeah.
Come on, I'm a child of God. You gonna listen to me? Come on, man. I'm a warrior. I'm from Africa too, Charles. You got to put it out there, man.
Congo.
I'm from Congo, man. But the point is, it's global, man. That pain, that bleeding, man. And like I said, that's one of the external factors. Going through divorce is painful. I mean, it's part of the human condition, but it is manageable.
It is.
Contingent upon just work.
You said two things, man: reaching out, asking for help, understanding the enemy within, right, and being able to deal with that, and also self-care. I know you have a huge self-care routine.
Oof, huge, man. That built my resiliency. That's what I'm teaching my kid. That's one of the values I want to give it back, right? Yeah. Resiliency. It's important, and self-care, and I celebrate that. You're gonna have your moment, but I have to learn that too. As men, you gotta.
I love that.
Oof.
And self-care, for some of you all who don't know, is just the ability to care for yourself, to engage in things that you enjoy when you're feeling down and out. Like if you're one of those dads in that situation, you're going through a terrible relationship right now and a separation, you need to find what it is that you enjoy the most, so you need to stay connected to it while you're going through that. For me, I love greasy, nasty, great, good Chinese food. Right? I go in there and get gangster. I put on like 500-600 calories and just eat my egg rolls, my fried chicken. But for me, that's self-care. I love to work out. I don't know what your self-care is, but it's going to be important that you stay connected to it. But Leonard, man, the bleeding is real, especially for dads. And I think not only are you dealing with that bleeding, Leonard, you're also dealing with this notion of masculinity what a father should be. And then you start to blame yourself for things that you had no control over. So you get caught up in that whirlwind. Mentally, you are gone, right? So, I mean, this is very important for us to understand what that barrier looks like in terms of divorce and relationship issues and how hard it is for fathers who are trying to stay engaged. Again, if you're out there listening, man, guys don't wake up and say, hey, I don't want to be in my children's lives anymore. Let me tell you, there's a process that unfolds. There's a process of bleeding that unfolds before they even get to that point. And once they're separated, there's hope in getting them back. But at the end of the day, without compassion for themselves, they will stay separated. And we got to be very honest with that. I'm going to tell you, Leonard, my dad doesn't have much compassion for himself. And my dad really beat himself up for not being engaged in my life for a few years, right? And I can only imagine how much bleeding he experienced from having that marital affair and also not knowing how to navigate it and missing 20 plus years of his children's lives, right? Wow. So when you think about the negative side of bleeding and what happens when you're not engaging in self-care, you'll probably end up like a situation that I had with my own father, where my father still isn't able to forgive himself for what he did. But we're here to say, hey, you know what? Being able to get back up and be in your kid's life is possible, right? They may be angry a little bit, but they want you to be there, right? That you're not to blame for your past. And as my cousin would say earlier when I talked to him about fatherhood, he said, when you go on a new lot and you buy a new car, right? Your goal isn't to back the car up when you get in the car and just stay on the lot. You want to drive the car off the lot. So you got to forgive yourself. It's how he talks. You got to forgive yourself, and you got to be able to make sure that you don't allow your past negativity to define your future.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness, baby. We have to really say, hey, you know what? I made a mistake, but I'm better than that mistake. That's what we need to do as dads. And I don't think us as dads, generally, I don't think we're compassionate and nurturing with ourselves. I think we blame ourselves a lot. We beat ourselves up when we're down and bleeding. Yeah,
and that's why we teach our father that comes, just have a nurture technique that works for you, man. And that's what worked for me. Manage what you can, focus on what you can't control. And out of the media dad I come here, some of them going to divorce. I mean, I think we have one of our dad here, right? I think joining, we reach out to a few, but we was able to get at least one to chime in. Who do we have on the line? I know we got a couple calls, because this is so important, man. We got to get them in a conversation. And part of this program, it's a partnership. You know what I'm saying, Charles? Build something that, partnership,
something that's so powerful.
Man, we're not saying we have all the answers, but we saying that, listen, we don't want you to give up, man.
We don't want you to give up. You know what? Man. You shouldn't give up, man. I told myself a long time ago, I said, I'm going to fight like hell, hot water to stay in my son's life. Right? I'm going to fight like hell to stay in his life.
And you don't have to fight alone. And I think that's the message. You don't got to fight alone, man. I know how it is, man. But sometimes your way might not work. And not to disrespect how you do things, but sometimes your way might not work. So you got to get support.
You have to. And the best support is given when you realize that the person generally wants to support you. Everybody's not up against you.
It may feel that way. And it's going to feel that way. I think it's going to feel that. Sometimes, you just want to give up, right? Sometimes you just want to, but you got to get up. You got to keep pushing, man. Keep pushing forward even when it hurt, because it's going to hurt, Charles. It's going to hurt, man.
It's going to hurt so bad. You're going to want to cry. It ain't nothing wrong with crying. Come on. I love crying. Let me tell you, if I could cry all day, I would.
Cry me a river, Charles,
Listen,
right?
After you cry, you feel a little bit better. Cry me a river.
You saying that's a Justin Timberlake?
That is Justin Timberlake. Man. Shout out to Cry Me a River.
Cry Me a River.
Yes, man. Ooh. But let me tell you, the best way to receive help is to put your guard down, right? And humble yourself. I can tell you, man, I had moments where I think I knew everything, and I think, people that were trying to help me thought they knew more than me. And, hey, I'm pretty sure that if people are thinking that, it's good for them to think that, because I want them to know more about the situation I'm dealing with so they can help me. And it's okay for people to know more about you, about things you don't know, because when it comes to navigating and trying to be your best person, you need to have smarter people than you around you. You have to, man. And that's just the reality of the situation. So we talk about being able to receive help. Let your guard down. Let your ego down. Be humble and realize that everybody ain't out to get you, man. There's actually people out there that really want to see you succeed, especially when you're a dad navigating to fight back in your child's life, to get back in your child's life.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
There's a big light, and it's bright as hell.
Many of y'all, man. Do we have him ready? Let me see. We got on the phone. I know kind of reach out to a couple folks.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm on the phone, Marlon.
Special guest. Marlon, how are you, brother?
Hey, brothers,
What's
how
up,
y'all
brother?
doing?
Oh, fired up, man.
Yeah,
fired
man.
up.
Thank
So
you for
good to
having
hear
me,
your
man.
voice,
I'm honored
man.
and privileged, and I'm not just saying that because you guys have been doing the work, and I'm part of that. I'm supporting all the way, man.
Thank you, Marlon. Marlon, quick question, man. I just want you to introduce yourself to the people real quick, and then we have some questions for you after
Hello,
you do your
everyone. My name is
introduction.
Marlon Castro, a client, if you will, of Father's Uplift, and I've kind of progressed into sort of an ambassador's role for Father's Uplift, and I've been going through some trials and tribulations due to divorce. So the topic, fits, resonates with me right now, and I'm glad to be on this podcast with y'all.
Thank you, brother Marlon. Y'all, I can agree. Marlon is a great guy. We've been privileged and honored to work with Marlon over the years. Marlon, now my first question to you, man, is, there's a lot of people out there that think they know what fathers experience when a divorce takes place. Can you paint the picture of what a man goes through, a dad, when divorce occurs, and the struggles that they can experience? Can you introduce that to us real quick? Because I think people need to know, be educated about
that. It's tough. Leonard touched on it a bit. He's obviously talking from experience. And I always tell people, guys that I talk to, even my own son, I said, I hope you never, ever, ever go through what I went through and what I'm going through right now, due to divorce. It is, my daughter's headmaster put it nicely. He said, divorce, there are two things that affect, a human being really hard, and that's death of a child and divorce. And it's true. Like, it's crazy to think that you can put divorce up there with the death of a child, of your own child, but that's how it feels, and it's definitely painful. The separation anxiety that comes along with it. The feelings of inadequacy, the thoughts, there's all kinds of emotions that run rampant in your very being. And, I'm still going through it. You know what I mean? Thankfully I've been, part of your organization. I'm also a man of faith. So I love all the quotes y'all were just expressing just now. So that's what helped me, stay afloat. And the fact that, I fight for my children and I get to see them, I know that some guys are not able to see their children, and that I can't even imagine that, you know what I mean? But it's definitely a challenge, man. 16 years of marriage to just one day, you're snatched away from your home. You can't come home to your own house to see your children like you're used to doing every single day, that was my life. I would go to work every day, come home every day to my family and my children, and that has all been torn away. Like I was literally plucked out of my own home, based on lies. So, I hope that answers the question.
Wow, man. Wow. You're a resilient person, man. The fact that you're standing here today and you're still fighting, man, I would say, man, it's admirable. We appreciate you for that, man. Leonard, what are you thinking for?
No, it's like, that's the key. You said fight. And Marlon, I heard you mention that because that's what me and Charles have been talking about. But how did you fight, man? What are the steps you took to fight? Because that's pretty much it come down to.
You guys were touching upon these issues a little while ago, talking about the system, and a lot of people say we got to fix the system. You know what? The system is not broken. You know why I say that? Because that's how it was designed. That's what they want it to be. They want.
Come on, Marlon.
I'm saying they want us men of color. First of all, you got two things against you when you're dealing with so-called family court. I have no idea why they call it family court, because they're in the business of breaking up families. But what they do, is just that. They break up the families and they side with the woman, unfortunately, because the woman, all she has to do, is play the victim. Now, I'm not minimizing the those that are really being abused, in domestic violence, abuse, or anything like that. I'm not minimizing that. But there are so many women out there today that are taking advantage of the system, and they're basically, just kind of going along with the system that allows them to say, oh yeah, I'm afraid. And that was the case. That was my case. I was married for 16 years. I have no record. Never any history of police showing up to my house, nothing like that. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, one day, because she felt like she needed something more in her life, decided to accuse me falsely and had the police, contact the police while I was at work. She went out and got a restraining order. So she had this all planned. And just to find out, I come home and she's gone with the kids. And then the police were looking for me, and they wanted to give me, the papers, serve me the restraining order papers. It's unfortunate because a lot of women, what they're doing is they're getting restraining orders on good fathers. But because I know I'm a good man and I know I'm a good father, and my kids can testify to that, can attest to that. People that know me can attest to that. Everyone was shocked when they heard the news that, that my family has been broken up, But the truth is going to come out. The truth comes out, and it's been coming out slowly. You know what I mean? And I just have to keep fighting. I just have to fight the good fight. For me, it was easy because I'm just coming with the truth. I did nothing to deserve it. You know what I mean? Marlon. This stems from mental health. On her part, she was physically abused, verbally and emotionally all through her childhood. And unfortunately, it came out 16 years later. And guess who was the target?
Thank you for sharing, man.
Thank you, man. My other question, Marlon, I have for you, man, because what you're sharing really brings this up for me. It brings up to me how the system could be easily used against the men, that the system wasn't designed for the men, and oftentimes the system sides with the women, right? Given the fact that, this has been your experience with the system, and I'm pretty sure it's been the experience of many men with the system, right?
Right.
What is it you were doing to keep yourself mentally strong throughout this process? I find myself, running into guys who are quick to give up because the system is so unfair. What is it that you're telling yourself when you're fighting the system? Like, what is your game plan in your mind as you're navigating and you keep getting back up when they knock you down?
Continue doing what I always have been doing, is being a father to my children. I still see my children. I still take them out. I'm even doing virtual doctor's appointments with them because unfortunately their mother is not even doing that. You know what I mean? So I'm just continuing to do that. And actually, this is kind of funny, but I find that I'm able to focus more on them because I don't have to deal with that toxic wife that I had. You know what I mean? I can focus more on them. And they know they're struggling though, because they saw and they see and they feel, and deep down inside they know the truth of what their mother has done. She brought in, along with all that, trauma that she experienced, the consequences of that is, daddy issues, feelings of inadequacy, wanting to do things that, you were never able to do, so it's like narcissistic behaviors, all that crazy stuff.
Bro,
yeah, I've been doing some reading and I've learned a lot from you guys. This stuff is real. This stuff is real.
Quick question for you, Marlon, because you got me fired up for a second. And let me tell you, this notion that you're focusing more on your kids than you're focusing on her. Back to this point about how the kids are affected. What have you seen happen to your kids as you were going through this divorce process? Like, what are some of the things that kids go through when dads are removed from their families due to divorce? Like, what have you seen for your kids personally, just from your personal experience?
For them because they love both parents, right? And I know they love me. I deep down in my soul, I know they love me, and they know I love them. But that's also their mother. You know what I mean? So they are very tight-lipped, and they're very kind of protective of her because they know that she's in the wrong. And they also see me as a strong man, a father figure that I've always been. So, I feel like they're more worried about her, and they hide a lot of things, and I can see the behaviors. I could see, my son, for example, was always, very, kind of a jokester, you know what I mean? And when this happened 3 years ago, can you believe it? I'm still dealing with this. 3 years ago, when this happened, he just kind of shut down, you know what I mean? And they got affected in school, was affected, but, their grades went down. But the one thing that I did again was I stayed on top of them. I stayed engaged. I go to their schools. I talk to their teachers. I take them to their appointments. I made sure, when we were able to do the things that we can't do today because of the pandemic, I made sure that they were engaged in activities, sailing, for example. That sailing is a sport that was primarily kept for white folks, but there's a great organization that allows kids in the poor neighborhoods, kids of color to participate, and I got them involved in that, So my son and my youngest daughter have been doing that for like 4 years now.
Wow.
So they go, you know what I mean? And because, they grew up in church. Like I said, I got married when I was 30. So I already knew what I wanted. And the very thing that I feared was this that's happening to me right now. So, I never wanted to be in this position at my age. I wanted to be like, okay, my kids are getting older. Pretty soon they're going to start going off to college, and I wanted to be settled with my wife, but she had other motives.
Marlon,
and
why not give up? Why not give up? What's keeping you fighting?
Because
why not give up?
I know that God is doing something.
Come on.
I know God is doing something, and He has something better for me. Those things that the devil meant for evil, God is going to turn around for good to those who love Him, and I love Him, and my children love Him. So I'm not even that worried. Do I get upset sometimes? Yes. Do I get angry? Do I get angry? Yes.
Gosh.
Do I want to, do something stupid? Yes. Because culturally, as Black and brown men, like you guys said, some of that, those feelings when we act out can be misconstrued. You know what I mean? But that's just culturally that we're passionate about what we love. You know what I mean? So I just keep the faith. My family, thank God, I have a very supportive family. I was just thinking that, unfortunately, in minority neighborhoods, a lot of kids grow up without a dad. So me, myself, and one other kid in my neighborhood growing up were the only two that had a two-parent household.
Wow.
Everyone else just had one parent.
Amazing,
mom,
Marlon. Listen, man, we commend you, man. We commend you because I think it's a testament, to you remaining fighting. And it's funny when you was talking about the whole, God. It was one of my favorite quote I heard. I think it was a pastor, man. He was like, "When you're down to nothing, God is up to something." So
y'all better stop.
Ooh, come on, man. Let me say that again, Charles.
Say it again.
When you're down to nothing, God is up to something. You know what I'm saying, Charles?
Amen.
Oh, come on.
Amen.
Let me play the organ. George, play the organ.
Come on, man. You know what I'm saying?
With God. Come on, now you got to put the preacher voice on. Marlon.
God.
Now, you and Lynn over here get me fired up, man. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to talk to dads right now who may be experiencing a divorce and are trying to fight to stay engaged in their kids' lives. What is your message to the dads out there and to the people out there who don't really understand this process?
It's an uphill battle because, like I said, the system was designed to keep us down. They don't want you to raise your children. They want your money. They'll throw you in jail if you don't pay child support. Your constitutional rights are violated consistently. You get no jury trial. What is that? Probate court, you get no jury trial. That's ridiculous to me. So you can't even express, your experience and what's actually really happening. They just kind of side, and then then they're dealing with, a lot of these women, they get women's advocates, the agencies that, against men, I'm not ashamed to call one out. Harvard Legal Services. They're known.
I'm going in.
Marlon going in. Marlon, what can we do? What can we do? Like, what is your advice to us dads who are stuck? What can they do?
Basically, be careful with your reaction because that's what they want. They want a reaction from you. They want you to get loud. They want you to get stupid. They want you to, get violent. They want you because then they can say, "See, that's what I'm talking about." They can point the finger and say, "Yeah, see," But that is mistaken. That is just our passion. That is just our passion coming out. One term that these women rights people love is toxic masculinity, and that's a term that's thrown around very loosely. You know what I mean? No, this is
toxic masculinity. Can you tell the people what toxic masculinity is from your vantage point?
Well,
when they say that term, what does it mean for you?
They kind of say that they're kind of saying that we support and advocate violence, misogyny, machismo, all of that stuff. That's kind of like what they're talking about. But not all of us are like that. A lot of us love. We love hard.
Come on, man.
We love hard. We love our children. I mean, I was dedicated to my baby's mother, because I don't even want to call her ex-wife or nothing, but we were married for 16 years. I was dedicated to her, man. I was dedicated to her and my children. I love hard. And from what I see, black and brown men love hard.
Come on.
You know what I mean?
We're lovers. We're not haters. We're lovers.
We're lovers.
Thank you for dispelling that notion. That's a big assumption, Marlon, that you just dismantled on the show.
We fight for our rights. We fight for what we want our children to have. But it all boils down to one thing. Like you said, like I said too, it's love. And God loves righteousness. Yeah. He's not too worried. He's not too worried about your rights. He loves righteousness, and that the truth is going to come out eventually. And like I said, those that love him are going to see the blessings and the rewards.
Wow, Marlon. Man, Marlon, thank you so much for joining us today, man. You just sat up here and got me fired up.
Thank you, brother.
And what I'm taking away from you, man, is that for the dads out there, people that's listening, dads out there, there's resources out there for you.
Yep.
Right? We got to find them. There's small gems out there that you can take advantage of. Secondly, we're lovers. Know that you're a lover, and don't allow someone to control you by getting you to react and act out of character. Because what I'm hearing, Marlon, from you is that these systems sometimes are designed to get you to act out of character so it can be used against you. So we got to stay in control.
Absolutely.
We got to stay in control, Marlon. So thank you for that feedback.
Appreciate you, man. I see you a hard working man. You calling from work? Are you working?
Yeah, man, I'm working right now.
Look at you.
That's another thing. You know what I mean? The child support has to be paid. If not, they throw you in jail. They take your license away.
Yeah, come on.
You know what I mean? And I know for a fact that money is not being put to good use. So that's another thing that you got to remember. It's going to anger you, but if you don't comply, then you're gonna get thrown in jail. You're gonna get your license taken away. So you have to play the game, but just remember that, things will turn around,
Come on.
The tables will turn. Even Jesus was flipping tables back in the day.
Yeah, let me tell you. He also spent some time in the wilderness by himself.
Exactly.
Crying and really just praying, Lord, why?
Yep.
So if you got to ask God some questions, if you got to cry a little bit, you better cry a river. You better cry a river. It's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be stuck.
And I think that's what this whole, show is about, man. That's what we do right now, creating that safe space. I mean, in lieu of what's going on right now as we speak around the country and connecting dots. I mean, we're here to support, man. It's all about, gaining access to support and find that support. And you're not alone. Your ability to manage your emotion over time, and you'll become resilient. And that's the stuff that, me and Charles was touching before. We appreciate you so much, man. You're a soldier, you're a warrior. This is a program, man, and it's about a partnership. So, keep pushing, brother. Keep pushing, man.
Keep pushing, man. We love you, man. We'll let you back to work.
We'll
talk soon.
I'm down with y'all.
Yes,
all right. We love you, man. Take care.
All right, man.
Peace.
White Charles, that was man.
Woo.
It's definitely
it is.
It's emotional, man. And I think we want to make it clear that we gotta have this space. And I think, yes, you're gonna be angry. I think our goal as provider to create a safe space to also guide you and coach you, right? And we want you to lay it out. And I know even, Marlon mentioning institution, but I think we don't want to misconceive that as a way to create hate and you know what I'm saying, Charles? So
yeah, I think that's a great point, Leonard. And we, Marlon is a father who experienced it, who lived it. Leonard, you've experienced it. And the reality is that, no system was created to be perfect. I mean, that's the reality, right? Systems have their flaws. And what we're pointing out is the specific flaws of a system. Yes, systems do their good, but also system creates a lot of problems for families, especially dads. And we just got to acknowledge both. If we're going to talk about the good of a system, we need to talk about opportunities for the system to grow. And we just want to bring those things to light. We want to bring to light the struggles of dads fighting to remain engaged in his kids' lives. And we also going to bring to light the flaws of systems that are standing in the way from dads being able to be the fathers they want to be, like child support. Right? Like probate court sometimes, man. We just gotta be honest. Like some of the judges who have all this power, or some of the cops who have all this power who take advantage of it, killing black and brown folks.
Come on, man.
Come on now, let's be real. Call a spade a spade.
Come on, man.
Rest in peace, George Floyd.
Please, rest in peace.
All my brothers who've been killed by police officers, man.
Right.
If we're gonna go there, we're gonna go there all the way.
There, yeah. And we have to, whether you like it or not. And I think all I mean is just
I love that, Leonard.
uncomfortable. You gotta have uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's what this is about. Uncomfortable conversation. It don't even matter what you look like. Come at the American table. Let's talk about American issue. Let's talk about the United States Family Probate Court system and others. So when you come together at the table, and then just learn as provider and so forth, so on. So y'all keep pushing out there, man. We're going to keep going, Charles. We're going to keep going, man.
Let's get it, man. Yes, we are. Thank you for joining us this week at AFAR. We look forward to having you back next week. And let me tell you, next week, we have a treat in store for you. Me and Leonard are going to continue this dialogue. But as you leave, think about what it is that you heard today from Marlon, but also that you heard from us. There's another side of the story that needs to be told. And we're here to tell you, fathers that are absent physically, they are fighting. We're going to tell you what that fight entails. So thank you again for joining us at AFAR Absent for a Reason podcast. We love you. We appreciate you. And like we said last week, we'll see you next week at AFAR.
Peace.
Fathers Uplift. Change the narrative. Fathers Uplift. We can prove it. Fathers Uplift. It takes a village. Fathers Uplift will help you through it. Time and time again, the narrative penned about fathers is that they don't want to be there for their children. But what's hardly ever mentioned is how there are a multitude of reasons a father can go missing. More than that he doesn't care or he wouldn't dare step up because he doesn't love his children enough once. It's true. Some fathers don't want to be involved at all, but contrary to popular belief, that percentage is extremely small. Before we start saying this dad was intentionally an absentee, we must first assess whether he isn't there but wants to be. We must also evaluate whether mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, economically, socially, environmentally, fathers are equipped to maintain positive relationships with their children. Fathering is not a singular act. If he lacks his village and community support, then of course he may go MIA. That's why therapist Charles C. Daniels and Samantha Fields Daniels founded Fathers Uplift to help guide and provide them with the mental health services they need so want-to-be fathers can actually make better decisions for themselves and their families.